That's nearly a mile and a half long. It pretty much speaks for itself as far as the sport goes.
What if I told you that a small group of leather-clad bikers, once considered nothing more than drunken misfits, grew into a billion-dollar global empire that rivaled the Mafia? That behind the roaring engines and skull patches lies a chilling story of war, power, and bloodshed? This is the real story of how the Hells Angels rose from post-Wafu rubble to become the most feared outlaw motorcycle club on Earth. But it didn't start with drugs, or even crime. It started with war heroes. Born from war, the aftermath of World War II. After World War II, America was bursting with returning veterans, men who had seen death, destruction, and brotherhood like no civilian ever could. Some of these men didn't fit back into society. They missed the adrenaline, the danger, the purpose. And so they picked up motorcycles and formed clubs. One such group, formed in 1948 in Fontana, California, called themselves the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. The name, ironically, came from a World War II bomber unit. These weren't criminals, at least not yet. They were brothers in arms. But what started as a search for camaraderie quickly became something much darker.
A red and white support run poster. I'd say it's pretty good destiny. This is a great place to be. It's a different ride.
The rise of the 1%. In 1947, a motorcycle rally in Hollister, California turned violent. Bikers flooded the streets, fights broke out, the media went wild, painting all motorcycle clubs as lawless gangs. The American Motorcyclist Association tried to distance itself, claiming that 99% of bikers are law-abiding citizens. The remaining 1%, they wore it like a badge of honor. The Hells Angels adopted the 1% patch, declaring themselves proudly outside the law. From this moment on, their identity was sealed. Outlaws. Expansion by fire, fighting other gangs. As the 1950s and 60s rolled in, the Hells Angels expanded from California into other states. But they weren't the only ones. The Bandidos, the Pagans, the Outlaws. Other clubs had the same idea. It didn't take long before these groups clashed. And when they did, it wasn't just fists. It was knives, guns, chains, and bombs. In the biker world, territory is everything. The Angels fought for every city, every highway, every patch. One of their most brutal wars, against the Mongols MC in Southern California. It raged for years. Ambushes, shootings, car bombs, civilians caught in the crossfire. But the Hells Angels didn't just survive these wars, they thrived.
Somebody asked me a while back, what's the best thing that ever happened to you? And I said, I woke up this morning.
The Sunny Barger era, the face of the club. In 1957, Ralph Sunny Barger founded the Oakland chapter. Under his leadership, the Hells Angels transformed from a scattered group of riders into a centralized, organized brotherhood. Barger was no fool. He knew how to handle the media, how to enforce discipline, and more importantly, how to make money. He demanded loyalty, he demanded fear, and he got both. The Hells Angels became more than just a gang. They became a brand, going national and then global. By the 1960s and 70s, the Hells Angels had chapters across the US. San Francisco, New York, Chicago, even Alaska. But the real power play? International expansion. In 1969, the first Canadian chapter opened in Montreal. By the 1980s, they were in the UK, Australia, and across Europe. This wasn't random. The Hells Angels had a strategic model. Establish dominance, crush rivals, and create loyalty through blood. They'd send American Angels to set up chapters, enforce rules, and spread the code. Each chapter had to earn its patch. And they did, by proving they were ruthless enough to wear the wings. The Altamont disaster, the world watches. In 1969, the Hells Angels were hired to provide security for the Altamont Free Concert, a West Coast answer to Woodstock. They were paid in beer. What happened next became infamous. As the Rolling Stones performed, chaos erupted. A man named Meredith Hunter pulled a gun and was stabbed to death by an angel. On camera, the world saw the footage, saw the stabbing, saw the blood. The Hells Angels were forever burned into the public's mind. not as rebels, but as killers. And they didn't care. Drugs, guns, and money, the criminal empire. Behind the scenes, the Hells Angels were building something much bigger than bike clubs. They were becoming a criminal empire. By the 1980s and 90s, the Angels were heavily involved in methamphetamine production and trafficking, gun smuggling, prostitution rings, extortion. Chapters acted like cells, independent but united by the patch. It was almost military-like. Orders came down, members executed. In Quebec, they fought a brutal war against rival drug gangs. Over 160 people were killed, including innocent civilians. But the money was flowing, and the law couldn't keep up. Going undercover, law enforcement strikes back. Authorities couldn't ignore the violence any longer. In the 1990s and 2000s, police launched massive investigations. Undercover agents infiltrated chapters. Wiretaps were placed, deals were monitored. One of the most famous stings, Operation Black Biscuit. An ATF agent named Jay Dobbins spent years undercover, posing as a gun runner. He got close, too close, and what he saw was terrifying. Murders, beatings, and brutal initiations. When the feds moved in, hundreds of Angels were arrested across the globe, but the club survived, because for every chapter that fell, another rose.
The Hells Angels motorcycle gang is expected to return to Calgary, prompting a heads-up from police.
Brotherhood and blood, the code of silence. How did the Angels stay alive for so long? Simple, loyalty. Every member takes an oath. You never betray the club, you never speak to cops. And if you do, you're green lit, marked for death. The patch isn't just cloth, it's your soul. If you leave the club, you return it. Or the club takes it off your back, often violently. This code of silence made prosecutions nearly impossible. Even witnesses feared testifying. Inside the club, they lived by a brutal hierarchy. Prospect, full patch, officer. You don't just join the Angels, you bleed your way in. Celebrities, music, and mainstream fame. Despite the crime, something unexpected happened. The Hells Angels became cool. Rock stars like Hunter S. Thompson, Jerry Garcia, and even Ozzy Osbourne brushed shoulders with Angels. They showed up at concerts, parties, political rallies. Sunny Barger published books. Hollywood made movies. To the public, they were no longer just criminals. They were icons, anti-heroes in a world gone soft. The brand became worth millions. They even sued Disney in 2007 for using their logo in a film, and won. Fractures within, power struggles and civil war. But power breeds enemies, even from within. Over the years, internal disputes tore chapters apart. Rogue members formed splinter groups. Some were expelled. Others challenged leadership. In Canada, a group of ex-Angels formed the Rock Machine, sparking a war that killed over 150 people. In Europe, power grabs led to violent coups within chapters, bombings, ambushes, even assassinations. In some cases, Angels fought other Angels. But each time, the club rebuilt, regrouped, and returned stronger. The modern-day corporate biker Mafia. Today, the Hells Angels are no longer just a gang. They're a global organization with a presence in over 60 countries. They own businesses, trademark their logo, sell merchandise, enforce rules like a Fortune 500 company with violence as their HR policy. They control ports, trafficking routes, and arms networks. Some chapters still operate underground meth labs. Others focus on legitimate fronts, tattoo shops, strip clubs, bars. But the code remains: loyalty, brotherhood, violence. And the law, still trying to catch up.
That day, you came for a day. Everybody in the prison coming up like wanting to be your pal. It's fucking pretty cool.
Cracking the myth. Are they still dangerous? So, are the Hells Angels still a threat? In short, yes. Law enforcement still considers them a criminal syndicate. The FBI, Interpol, and Europol all monitor their movements. In 2022, several Angels in Europe were arrested for planning targeted hits. In the US, chapters were raided in connection with drug and weapons trafficking. They operate in the shadows, carefully, strategically. Not all members are criminals, but all members live under one rule: the club comes first, always. From war-torn soldiers to international kingpins. From beer-fueled riots to courtroom battles, from Altamont to Amsterdam, the Hells Angels have carved a bloody trail across the world, blending rebellion with ruthless control. They didn't rise to power by accident, they rose through war, loyalty, fear, and in the world of outlaw motorcycle clubs, they still ride on top. If you found this story insane, hit that like button. Got thoughts or theories? Drop them in the comments, we read every one. And don't forget to subscribe for more real crime stories you won't believe. This story isn't over, it's just beginning.